This video is in response to Rummy Millennial and Vegan Gains' talk over the weekend. I didn't know they were going to have one. I heard probably a little over half of it. Eventually I tuned out. It was a very non-productive conversation. But I did have some thoughts after coming out of the video after the live stream. One thing is, it did appear that Roaming was not up on her nutritional information. I don't know if she didn't prepare or if she pulls from different areas. One thing that she said a lot was that cholesterol was bad. I don't happen to believe that cholesterol is bad. I will include a link below. It's to a Chris Kresser, and he has a excellent website for nutritional information for anyone, whether you're vegan, vegetarians, paleo, or just looking to get healthy. And he does back it up with a lot of studies too that he also cites if you're interested in that. I'm not going to delve into the nutritional thing because what I've learned from talking to many vegans is that it doesn't matter. They have their own sources, they have their own things that they believe, and they don't care about studies. They don't care what information you present to them. It doesn't matter. And because if it did, they would probably already know those. They would be open to looking at other sources and seeing, okay, maybe this vegan thing's a lot harder than I thought. I'll also include another link to that if you're thinking about a vegetarian or vegan diet. It has a lot of good information. Even if you're going to do it, the things that you really need to hone in on, that would be very helpful. I also think that you have to pay very close attention because many critical nutrients can be missed in a vegan diet extremely easily. And there's some that you could argue they can't actually get, and that requires supplementation. Which again, if you can't get everything you need from your diet and you don't have a specific medical condition, I think that definitely shows that it's lacking what you're eating. A vegan diet is very easy. I think I could argue almost impossible to get it just right. Whereas if you eat more of a paleo type, it doesn't have to be specifically anything, but you eat real food basically, nothing processed. This is pretty easy to get right. Like again, unless you have a specific medical condition, a really specific one, you can, eat a variety of things and you'll be okay. It doesn't require too much work. One of the other things that they brought up that I think this is when the conversation really started to go off the rails, was when is it okay to kill an animal for food? Every animal will die and be food for something else. Whether a predator or scavenger eats it, returns to the earth, bacteria, grubs to feed the plants, we are not exempt from this cycle either. We too shall feed something else. We are part of nature and take place in this cycle. We are not outside of it. And I don't see a problem with killing an animal to eat for food on the face of it, just at that moral argument. Certainly there are more inhumane ways to go about it. In factory farming of plants, by the way, and animals is not taking care of the environment or doing it, let's just say, in a good way. But we don't avoid eating plants or animals just because at this current time in our civilization, we haven't figured out how to do everything just perfectly. It does get better. People used to starve because there wasn't enough food around. It doesn't really happen in the modern world. People don't starve because there isn't food. Other conditions actually cause that. You can find food. But I think people forget, you look 300 years ago and past, you would literally starve because there wasn't any food. Horrible famines or diseases or other conditions, drought maybe, would cause that there just wasn't anything to eat. And we don't have that problem, not in the modern world. I do think, I think most people that get into being more health conscious with their choices do try to buy like pastured and sustainable food sources, fair trade coffee. I mean, there's lots of different things, and those are definitely increasing in sales. If you look even 5 years ago, there weren't near as many options to buy that sort of thing as there are nowadays. And as far as I can see, it's only increasing. I mean, Walmart even carries pastured grass-fed steak now. So I think that's definitely a step in the right direction. I think the other thing that a lot of vegans don't even consider is that eating a vegan diet is extremely difficult. Like I said, you could argue I think it's impossible, but at the very least extremely difficult to get right. not everyone can afford to do the supplementation to diet like that. That's not, everybody can do that. That's, as a civilization, we have to take small steps. We can't just everybody eat lettuce all day, and apples and whatnot. For one thing, the agricultural thing, industrial side of it would have to ramp up even more than it is now. And I think you can make a very good claim that even farming for vegetables, it does disrupt the environment, and it can, especially the factory farming of plants or animals. It really damages the soil. And do you have any idea how many little critters, rabbits, groundhogs, all sorts of little critters like that get chewed up? What about insects? When the big combines come out, and tear up the grounds. There is no way to get food as of yet that does not involve loss of life of some sort. And I think that vegans seem to be under the impression that eating plants is kinder and nicer. I don't think it is. I have not seen a good case made for that. The other thing is that we are at the top of the dominance hierarchy. We're kind of like the top predator. Hunters go out to hunt to keep the deer populations down. That's something that a predator has to do. If there are no predators, that causes also damage not only to the environment, but to, the individual animals actually concerned with that, due to overpopulation, disease, all sorts of other things that go wrong. Nature is, does keep a balance, and we are part of that. So when a hunter goes out to kill deer because we need to keep them down, or wolves, or whatever happens to be, the current problem, are they just supposed to let the animal rot? Why not make use of it? Why not eat it? Why not get the full thing? Because we're going to eat it. Then one day we will die too, and it will go back to the earth. I don't understand trying to escape this life and death that appears to be here on earth, and we cannot escape no matter what. Animals can be slaughtered humanely. Okay. Look at it this way. If we didn't eat so many chickens, there wouldn't be that many chickens around. Look at the tigers. They're very dangerous. Almost extinct. We're going extinct, endangered at one point. I believe now they've close to tipping out of that, only because we think they're cute. If animals or plants do not serve some function to people, there's a good chance they will go extinct. That's why you'll never have to worry about the chicken. Well, maybe not never. Maybe when we can grow meat, that might change things a little bit in a test tube. But chickens aren't going to go extinct anytime soon. They'll always be around. And yes, it would be better if they were able to roam around, eat grubs and kind of live a little bit more of their natural habitat. And like I said, I see progress being made in this direction. You can go to Walmart and buy cage-free eggs. You can even buy pastured eggs from specific farms. It's increasing. It's getting better and better. Just because life isn't perfect right now, there's no need to go bonkers, basically. And that's what I see a lot particularly from the vegan side, is, it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. We just got to keep making it a little bit better. And I think we do, overall, are making it better right now. Something else I'd like to discuss about a reflection on the conversation that they had. The ideology of veganism reminds me very much of like a Southern Baptist fundamental. It's almost like if you're not one of the pure ones, one of the chosen ones, you're tainted, you're unclean, you're unworthy. I don't like that type of thought. It's dehumanizing, and it's not recognizing the, human individuality that we all have. I do not care for any ideology that does that. I myself have grown up in the South. I still live in the South. And even though it's not so much now, I do remember those sorts of people, and they very much remind me of them, like the Westboro Baptists. Honestly, for the hardcore vegans that are very militant about this, they're kind of the same thing. And that's really sad, because I'd like to see that type of perverted thinking die. It's not helpful to moving us forward. Perhaps at one point it did serve a purpose when we were in tribes. I don't feel that any longer this idea of dehumanizing other people, that they're unworthy, they're impure, they're unclean. We must keep them out. We cannot let the impure ones in, touch our purity. For we are the righteous, pure ones. We have the true knowledge. We have the moral high ground. We have full, I guess, really, they just think they're perfect. And that's no way to go about talking to people. That's no way to think about yourself. No one's perfect. No one. And if you're going to go around the deluded idea that you're a perfect person, and anyone that doesn't think like you do is, worse than a worm on the ground, there's something wrong. I guess that's the only thing I can say. There is something wrong with your thinking, and you really need to be like, whoa, that's crazy talk. I'm perfect. I'm great. I'm always perfect. I can do no wrong. Others aren't. Environmental concerns, I'm also not convinced that eating plants helps that in any way, and actually may make it much worse. As we've already stated, factory farming of plants or animals is not good for the environment overall, and we definitely like to see that improved to pasture natural techniques. And I think that a strong case can be made that more pasture animals, allowed to free roam a little bit more, allowed to get out in the environment, defecate where they're supposed to, help fertilize the ground, and other sorts of, just them interacting with the environment in a more normal manner is better. I know that there's a small movement, I believe, to reintroduce the bison to the, Midwest, where they were once roaming, to help restore the topsoil, because it's not doing so well right now with the farming techniques that we're currently using. Again, it's getting better. The amount of nutritional information that we are learning is increasing quite a bit. I don't know if anyone listening remembers, but at one point the U.S. government told people to avoid eating eggs because eggs were bad for you. Now it's changed. Eggs are great. Eggs are great for you. They have a lot of nutritional value, and they're quite the powerhouse. Same thing. Butter used to be the devil. Everybody eat margarine. Then they find out, of course, after many, many years, margarine isn't actually good for you, and you're better off probably just eating butter instead. Time magazine, I think even a couple years ago, had a cover with butter on it, bringing it back into the forefront. I would not be quick to jump on any bandwagons, and try to do a little research on your own. It gets extremely complicated and technical. For example, looking up the vitamin B12. That's often a vitamin that vegans can be lacking in. But it's actually extremely complicated the more you dig into how B12 works, like what kinds we can use. Extremely complicated. And that's not even taking into account things like amino acid profiles, trying to get all the essential amino acids. Again, perhaps if there's any interest, I will pull out a few studies and see what the current things are, and we'll go through them and look at them and just take a look and see what we think. I find that information interesting, but it really does get technical. So I think I'm roaming a little bit now, so I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Again, I think the Roaming Millennial Vegan Gains chat that they had is an example of what not to do. Maybe they can try again, or use a different tack, have a different format, different people involved. I do think it would pay for Roaming to do a little reading, that way she can be a little bit better armed with nutritional information just in general. But also, it's not going to help if whoever she's talking with has decided that the other person is unworthy and unclear, and that they're deemed them, less than human, really less than themselves. that will not lead to a very productive conversation. Might be entertaining, but I don't see a lot of good necessarily coming out of that. I personally feel like the vegan gains guy, whereas Roaming did come off a little bit clueless at points, vegan gains really just came off as a complete possessed ideologue. That's the only way I know to describe it. He was like a crazy man, just possessed of the devil himself.